Every night. You close a door. Maybe it's the guest room. Maybe it's your grandparents' old bedroom. Maybe it's a storage room you've been meaning to clean for years. You walk past it without thinking. Because you already know what's inside. Or at least, you think you do. But here's something strange. There are millions of rooms around the world that nobody enters anymore. Not because they're locked. Not because they're haunted. Simply because the people who gave those rooms meaning never came back. And once people disappear, objects begin telling the story instead. A house is supposed to protect life. Walls keep out rain. Windows bring in light. Doors separate safety from uncertainty. But none of these things actually make a home. People do. Anthropologists often describe homes as containers of daily rituals. Cooking, sleeping, laughing, arguing, waiting, repeating. Thousands of tiny actions slowly sink into a place until the building itself feels alive. That's why an empty house feels so unsettling. Nothing is technically wrong. The walls still stand. The furniture still waits. The clock may even continue ticking. Yet something invisible has vanished. Presence. And humans are surprisingly good at detecting its absence. Imagine walking into a room where someone clearly lived yesterday. A mug sits beside the bed. A sweater hangs over a chair. Half of a book lies open. Dust covers everything. Your brain immediately starts asking questions. Who lived here? Why did they leave? Will they come back? Psychologists call this narrative completion. The human brain hates unfinished stories. We evolved to search for explanations because uncertainty once meant danger. If footprints suddenly stopped, something probably happened. If a campfire went cold, someone wasn't returning. Today, that same instinct activates inside abandoned homes. Our minds begin writing endings that don't exist. Because silence is impossible for the human imagination. Here's the fascinating part. Most objects are built to survive longer than the people who own them. A ceramic cup can last thousands of years. Glass barely changes. Wood, if protected, survives centuries. Entire civilizations have been reconstructed from broken bowls. Not kings. Not battles. Bowls. Archaeologists rarely discover complete stories. They discover objects. A comb. A shoe. A spoon. A child's toy. Each one is like a sentence missing the rest of its paragraph. Imagine someone finding your bedroom 500 years from now. What would they learn? A laptop. Charging cables. Old photographs. Medicine bottles. A forgotten grocery receipt. None of these explain who you were. But together, they quietly suggest someone existed. Someone worried. Someone planned tomorrow. Someone expected another ordinary morning. People often say abandoned buildings feel haunted. But perhaps ghosts aren't what we're sensing. Perhaps we're sensing interruption. Human life follows patterns. Wake up. Eat. Work. Sleep. Repeat. Homes are designed around those rhythms. When those rhythms suddenly stop, everything freezes mid-sentence. A chair still faces the television. Shoes still point toward the door. Curtains still wait for sunrise. It's like watching a movie paused forever. Neuroscientists suggest that our brains constantly predict what should happen next. When prediction suddenly fails, we experience discomfort. Not because something is there, but because something should be there, and isn't. That invisible gap becomes strangely powerful. Outside, cities race forward. Phones update. Cars change. Children grow older. Inside an abandoned room, time behaves differently. Dust settles. Wallpaper peels. Plants push through cracked floors. Nature slowly renegotiates ownership. Scientists call this ecological succession. Life never truly disappears. It simply changes tenants. Mold becomes the architect. Roots become the engineers. Birds become the new residents. Eventually, even concrete begins losing the argument. Civilizations often imagine themselves permanent. Nature never agreed. Dust seems insignificant. We wipe it away without thinking. But dust is remarkably personal. Inside homes, much of it comes from us. Tiny fragments of skin, hair, fabric fibers, paper, pollen carried indoors. Every day, our bodies quietly become part of the places we inhabit. Forensic scientists can sometimes reconstruct where people lived simply by studying microscopic traces left behind. Long after voices disappear, evidence remains. Not dramatic evidence, quiet evidence, the kind that never intended to become history. Perhaps that's what memory really is. Not grand monuments, but tiny particles refusing to completely vanish. But maybe the most abandoned rooms aren't inside old houses. Maybe they're inside us. Everyone carries places they no longer visit. The bedroom they grew up in. The hospital room where someone said goodbye. The apartment where a relationship quietly ended. The classroom where they believed their future would begin. Physically, those rooms may still exist. Emotionally, their doors closed years ago. Yet sometimes, one familiar smell, one photograph, one forgotten song, and suddenly, you're standing inside again, without ever leaving where you are. Memory doesn't preserve buildings. It preserves the feeling of being inside them. One day, every room you know will belong to someone else. Or to no one at all. The walls won't remember your name. The furniture won't explain your dreams. Even your favorite chair will simply become an old chair. But somewhere, perhaps decades from now, someone may open a forgotten door. They'll notice a coffee mug, a worn-out book, a jacket hanging exactly where you left it. And for one quiet moment, they'll wonder who lived there. Not because they knew you, but because every abandoned room asks the same question. What does a life look like after the person has gone? And perhaps the answer was never written in the walls. It was always hidden in the ordinary things we left behind. Fade to black.